Alright, this is Unit 2, Lesson 2. Today our learning targets are I can sort and name geometric figures. I can use letters to label geometric figures. I can draw and name geometric figures. Alright, the first thing that you need to do is get out your math notebook. We have some vocabulary words to write down. Alright, your first vocabulary word to write down is line, and a line is a straight path that goes on forever in opposite directions. Okay, so this we call line AB because that's the letters on it, and we have arrows on both ends because it goes on forever in opposite directions. Your second vocabulary word is line segment. Line segment is part of a line that has two endpoints. Okay, so when we have dots on the ends instead of arrows, it is called a line segment. Next we have array. Array is part of a line that has one endpoint and extends without end in another direction. So it has a dot and an arrow. And your last vocabulary word for today is angle. An angle is a figure formed by two rays with the same endpoint. So they share the dot and then they have two rays going off of it in any direction. Alright, so you need to raise your hand for page 95. On page 95 it says examine these figures. Okay, so we have A, B, C, D, all the way to P. They want us to look at these figures. How are some of these figures the same or alike? What can we say about these? Knowing what we just learned about vocabulary, can we call them? I know that some of these are lines. An example would be I. I is a line. K is a line. D has two lines. B has two lines. Some of these are line segments. C has two line segments. E has two line segments. H is a line segment. J is. And some are rays. F is a ray. M has two rays. O is a ray. Okay. How do some of the figures differ from one another? Well, let's look at the difference between A and B. I know that these ones are crossing each other, so they are creating angles. Some, oops, create angles. What do we call it when two lines are right next to each other but they would never cross? We call those parallel lines. So some are parallel and some if they cross and they make a right angle, what do we call those? Those are called perpendicular lines. So some are perpendicular. All right, let's go ahead and flip the page over to 96. All right, let's look at number 3. It says a line is straight and continues forever in both directions. You can say that a figure is a line, or you can draw arrowheads on its ends to say that it extends forever. Which figures on page 95 show lines? So we need to write the letters. So I know that letter B is a line. I'm going to show 2 screens here. Which other figures show lines on page 95? So B, we know it has 2 endpoints. C has endpoints, so we know that that's not it. We need arrows on both ends. So D and I is not J. K is, because it has arrows on both ends. L is, and P. All right, next one is a line segment. Has a fixed length, meaning it stops. If a figure is a line segment, it cannot be made longer. You can add points at the end of a line segment to show that it cannot be made longer. Which figures show line segments? Okay, so here's what a line segment looks like. 2 endpoints. I know that C is a line point, or a line segment. See if you can find the rest. Number 5 says a ray begins at a point and can go on forever, but in only one direction. Which figure shows rays? Okay, so ray looks like this. I know that letter A shows a ray. See if you can find the rest. Number 6 shows is when lines, line segments, or rays meet at a point, they form one or more angles. Which figure shows angles? So I know B forms an angle because this is an angle right here. See if you can find the others. Number 7. When two lines, line segments, or rays cross and form 4 congruent angles, the lines are perpendicular, and the angles that are made are right angles. Which figures look perpendicular? Okay, so over here we show all the angles are the same because they are congruent. A right angle means that it creates a 90-degree angle. So B would not be perpendicular because this is not a 90-degree angle. But E is a 90-degree angle. So those would be perpendicular. There is one more for number 7. See if you can find out which one it is. And number 8, when two lines are the same distance apart at every point, they are called parallel. Which figures look as if the lines, rays, or line segments are parallel? Okay, so they have to be the same distance apart at every spot. So I know C is parallel. Which other ones are parallel? Two lines the same difference apart. There are 3 of them. I gave you 1. Alright, raise your hand to get a star for this page. Then we are moving on to page 97, so you'll need to get 97. Alright, on page 97 it says you can name figures by labeling them with letters. The letters A, B name the line in this figure. Which letters name the ray in the figure? We need to name the ray. Okay, so a ray looks like it has a point and then it has an arrow. Okay, I know that this is a ray, so we would call that CD because it goes from C to D, and it's a ray. Okay, a vertex is a point that is common to the 2 sides of an angle. One angle in this figure is angle AEC. Notice that when you name an angle, you draw an angle symbol. The middle letter of an angle's name indicates its vertex. So if we angle AEC, E would be the vertex. They want us to name 3 other angles in this figure. So one would be angle AED. See if you can name the other 2. Alright, number 11 wants us to name the line segments, vertex points, and angles in each figure below. So the line segment for number 11 would be GE, and DF. And we put lines above those because those are line segments. The vertex point where the lines meet is point H. And then we need to label the angles. So I have angle DHE, angle EHF, angle FHG, and angle GHD. Sorry, that's hard to read. Notice that my vertex is always the middle letter. Alright, go ahead, finish 12 and 13, then raise your hand to get your star. Alright, your homework today will look a little different, similar to an assignment we saw last week. Your homework today will look like this. It's called Points, Lines, and Line Segments. You will be naming each line segment and determining if the lines are parallel, intersecting, or perpendicular. Your second page will be rays and angles, and this one you need to name each angle in 3 ways, and then classify the angle as obtuse, right, or straight. So for number 1, I would say this is angle Y, X, Z, angle Z, X, y, or angle